Just let me know when it's up. Oh, shoot, are we live right now?
We are.
It's not showing up on YouTube's homepage. There we go. I got it. Welcome, guys, to another very well-prepared YouTube Live. Now, we're going to be discussing some of the comments and questions and concerns that people have been having, well, since, you know, companies like HoloSun and Primary Arms and PSA became companies, but also we launched a YouTube video yesterday, launched. It's 58 minutes, an astonishing 58 minutes, practically a short film of budget versus the rich, rifles and builds and considerations and whatnot. Now, there was a facet to the video that people have on, there's two sides. They either understand it and they agree with it, or they think it's entirely unreasonable. And the question for the video title that was posed, and I will be honest, there's a little bit of clickbait, because that's kind of how analytics in YouTube work. You kind of have to do it to get your videos to get in front of people, to get your message in front of people. You kind of got to do a little bit of clickbait, just a little bit, not too much. You don't want to be too weird. But the idea was, can you build a rifle for $1,000? Now, if you take the question in its literal sense, the answer is yes, you can get a gun of some sort for under $1,000. But in the grand scheme of things, you know, if you actually want a rifle that is capable with, you know, all the accoutrement that you need for that weapon, that's not going to happen for $1,000. And that's basically the point of the video and kind of the message of, you know, your first loadout, your first rifle, you know, new gun owner, what expectations, what should I get, what should I think about, is it's not just the rifle. You also have to think about your training support. You have to think about the equipment to support the rifle, your chest rig, your means of carrying extra ammunition for that weapon. It's very similar. I used an example in the video that I think is really one of the better ones out there for talking about this issue, and that is if you take a PVS-14, you buy a PVS-14, you know, green Omni 7 tube, whatever it is, you know, for $3,000, $3,200, whatever it is. That night vision is about this useful without any support equipment to go with it. You can wear it around a lanyard on your neck. You can use it for observation. With an adapter, you can put it on an M4, but you're not going to be able to run around and actually do stuff, you know, as a head-borne system with that night vision unit. In order for it to meet its full potential, you have to go out and buy a Rhino mount or a Wilcox mount. You have to go buy a helmet or some sort of head system like a OpsCore Skull Crusher or the little Cry Night cap or a bump helmet or a ballistic helmet. You also are going to need an IR laser for your rifle, some sort of sighting system, or have a optic that is night vision compatible. And then you're going to need an IR illuminator, so you can actually cast illumination when you're in a situation with no ambient or artificial light that your night vision is able to amplify. So then you're taking your PVS-14, your individual unit, and now it's, oh, I have to have this, 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 this in order to actually have some effectiveness in general. So that's basically the premise behind buying a rifle. Like, what else needs to go with the rifle besides just the one magazine it comes with and maybe a set of sights? And in my opinion, for people that are buying rifles for the sake of the Second Amendment, that's going to be some form of load-bearing gear. That's going to be some sort of chest rig, plate carrier, duffel bag, heat, you know, kit, you know, that has all the mags on it you wear under your suit coat as you're conducting certain operations. You're going to need something to actually complement the rifle and allow you to carry more ammunition to feed the gun. And we don't see gun tubers talking about that. We don't see gun manufacturers talking about that. It's just about the gun, the gun, the gun, the gun, not the support, the training, the gear, the logistics. And that's where the discussion, in our opinion here at T.REX Arms, that's where it needs to go. We need to be looking at firearms as a whole and not just the cool part, which is the gun. Although obviously there are lots of people out there that like kit and gear and, you know, like, you know, cool Cry plate carriers. You know, look at that. Oh, look at that. That really patriotic, just bright flag right there. It's really awesome. You know, the kit is cool, but people usually want to just think about the rifle and whatnot. So let's get into the comments a little bit, just summing up some of the premise behind this. And we'll see. I'm going to tell you guys right now, I said it in the video. The M&P Sport 2, the video we did, the gun we did the video on, was the most purchased rifle, based on what I've seen, the most purchased rifle of 2020. The AR-15 was the most purchased rifle in 2020. I'm going to tell you all right now, it was not bought to shoot 3-gun. It was not bought to do hunting. It was not bought to just shoot on your bench at, you know, the range. It wasn't just bought for fun. It was bought by concerned citizens who knew they needed something more than a shotgun, something more than a handgun. That's why AR-15s sell. People out there, while companies don't want to admit it, people out there know that AR-15s are very effective weapons. Semi-automatic shooting an intermediate cartridge, 5.56, 223, what the military uses, at least as of right now. People know that's the stuff to have. They want to have the same gear that they have. Subconsciously, that's what they're buying. Manufacturers won't say it. Manufacturers won't tell you. They'll sugarcoat by saying sport and military and police, M&P, and other terms. People in the comments were saying, "Oh, this is to prevent a lawsuit." Like, no, there's lots of companies out there that just say like carbine. Like you don't have to say killing machine. Like you don't have to call your gun that, but you can just say rifle, carbine. Come up with some name and not lean into it being for sporting use. That's not what guns are for. They can be used for that, but that's not why the AR-15 was invented. That's not why the Abstoner platform was developed. It was developed to incapacitate and kill. And the reason we're losing our gun rights today is because we get neutered every generation. Every single generation, we want to be on the defensive whenever the left says, we need to ban these weapons of war. And it's, oh no, well, they're for sporting, so you can't ban them if they're for sport. And then the next generation grows up thinking, oh, they're for sport. Well, we don't need them for sport because we like to play on Xbox, so let's go ahead and ban them. And that's just how it works. So politics being downstream from culture, we have to win, the cultural education in terms of what these weapons and what these things are for. So that concept people didn't really understand. Some people didn't really understand, and they're like, there's no problem to call it sporting. And it's like, yeah, well, that is actually a long-term problem, decades down the road. And the NRA has done a very bad job, and I'm going to put a lot of blame on them for leading people astray and sugarcoating the entire. Just everything. The NRA needs to go. Someone has said like, hey, would you want to be, if the NRA offered you a position, would you take it? And the answer is yes, I would, and I would shut the whole thing down, which means they would never ever put me in charge of it ever. But the NRA needs to go. It has seen its day. I don't know when that was. There's some interesting history. I did a lecture at the University of Wyoming. It was a little while ago. And I have a lecture that I've prepared with a bunch of study and research and whatnot, documenting the NRA's history and how long it's taken them to sugarcoat things down and what years they had stuff. And what's really fascinating is back during the I think it was I have to say it's the 70s, 70s or. Yeah, I think it was the 70s, before the Cold War, really. They had a guy who was he was an upstart. He believed that you should have machine guns. He was also a Border Patrol agent. He had been involved in a shooting. They ended up using that to kind of oust him and get rid of him in the administration, in the NRA. But he was someone who wanted legal machine guns. He was someone who said guns are for shooting people. He was very adamant about that, but the NRA leadership, and he actually led a coup of employees at the NRA convention, and there was like a bunch of drama surrounding that. But he was someone who was very counterculture, the NRA back then, that they actually ultimately basically tried to fire and kick out because he was a little too wild or constitutional for what they were comfortable with. So there's a long documented history of the NRA caving over years and decades. So I talked about that at the university, and I've got that PowerPoint and that whole thing. It's been a while since I've talked about that stuff, but it's really interesting if you study it. It's really cool. You should accept crypto as a form of payment. We will when it's common enough. Here's the funny thing, right? People ask us all the time. They go, hey, can you make a product for this? Can you make a thing for this? Can you make this color? We go and do the thing. About 10% of the people that ask actually utilize that system, service, or product. So we get asked about crypto here and there, but I already know most people wouldn't even use it. They ask for it because it's easy to ask for, but people aren't actually, in my opinion, they're going to use it. In the future, quite possibly, but right now, no. We're not going to work on that. There's more important things to focus on. We can only do so much at one time. What about gatekeeping? Because they're inherently anti-freedom. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of gatekeeping people due to gender and all that other stuff that you brought up. Now, I have seen people talk about certain influencers or people of prominence who are put in a position of prominence due to their follower count or due to their identity or due to their past experience. And people challenge that because they'll be like, well, you're putting this person on a pedestal because they are fill in the blank, whatever the thing is, that is not directly tied to credibility or background experience. There's an organization that I was doing stuff with a few years ago, and I ultimately wasn't interested in working with that organization anymore, simply because the people they chose to be at the top were people that held certain identities that made that organization hip. But the people with those identities didn't have background experience. They weren't, businessmen or former whatevers with, a lot of life experience. They were simply selected due to their fill-in-the-blank identity situation. So I have seen people in the gun industry challenge that. I've challenged that. The people that should be representing us should be people with background and credibility who have a lot more to offer than simply their, identity stuff. So yeah, people do challenge that as far as the people that are at the top dictating cultural policy is basically what influencers kind of end up doing. And I think that is the right thing to question as far as who are the people that are testifying to Congress, for example. We get what we deserve in most cases, and something to think about. I always love it when people are like, why are we represented by so-and-so? And it's like, well, because your standards aren't high enough to ask for this over here. You're fine with this, and you're not looking for this way over here or trying to support people over here. You're okay with, not so great. So it's a very interesting conversation, but I do think it's something people need to think about. We should be looking for people who can represent us in Congress and the Senate very effectively. That's what we should be looking for. Current culture is BS. Yep, you're not wrong. I don't disagree. Now I will say, with all that said though, and I think I talked about this on one of the last lives, or no, it was on the Vortex podcast. I just did a podcast with Vortex. It should be going up soon. They asked me, hey, do you think gun culture is getting better or worse? I think it's getting better. I've been doing this now for about 8 years, and I remember 7 years ago posting a photo of me wearing a plate carrier for the first time, and people going crazy that I had kit on. It wasn't even very good kit to begin with. I mean, steel plates, and I had Cryptek Highlander, if that tells you how long ago that was. But nowadays, that doesn't really happen. Really not as much. I think things have changed a lot for the better with Instagram, with social media, or just more platforms that reach more people. I mean, it's no surprise that we went up 5 million gun owners last year, and I would contribute some of that to social media. I would contribute some of that to just mass publication of firearms and gear. I mean, get this, and I talked about it on the podcast, that I remember 8 years ago, after I watched the Magpul DVDs, I was looking for content on the internet, and there really wasn't anything back then. I couldn't find pictures of Travis Haley's rifles. I couldn't find pictures of Chris Costa's rifles. I would find a photo. I remember a photo of I think it was one of Costa's hydro-dipped multicam builds. It would have been a LaRue, I think. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's such a cool looking gun. It's got a laser on it, a D-ball I-squared. That's the only photo I could find at the time. And now we have just content just out the ears from companies and training companies and dudes putting out training content that did not exist 7 years ago. It didn't exist 8 years ago. So I find it hard when people argue, well, our Instagram's ruined shooting. No, there are literally tens of thousands of people into shooting. And I know about some of it because they write to us and they tell us, hey, we got into shooting because of your videos. And so I'll just tally it. And I'm like, all right, there's another one. All right, there's another one. It's tens of thousands of people have gotten into shooting because of social media, because of YouTube. Yes, there's some bad habits that have been pushed. I've been responsible for a few. I'll take full responsibility for encouraging certain things that aren't as important as, really they should be, back in 2015 and some of the speed shooting stuff. But as a whole, I think the good definitely outweighs the bad. And I think things have gotten a lot better. Even in the budget Gucci discussion, I think there's a little more maturity in that and people understanding some things. And I am hoping in the future, not to give anything away, we are hoping to dive into that subject with a little more authority, with a little more background credibility on if budget guns really can perform against stuff that's a little nicer, a little bit better. We're working on a thing to address some of that, but more on that later, because that's what the discussion really needs to be, is actually proving some of these concepts, and it's not just an emotional response people have, because money is emotional. Budget is emotional. All right, so back into the comments. A lot of folks are coming in here, and they're like, we're going to talk about budget stuff, right? Well, we are to some extent based on some things that you guys ask. T.REX Arms not liking that I'm potentially leaking things. Look, I'm not leaking a thing. I'm just telling you that we are looking at what people are talking about, and we are trying to find ways of addressing people's concerns, problems, thought processes, processi. That's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking at. So, I did email PSA last night asking what their most popular rifle is. We'll see if they write back. Anyway, everyone's asking about PSA. Now, why I chose the M&P Sport 2, I don't have it around here. I can't even show it, really, on YouTube. I do have an airsoft gun right there, though. But the reason I chose the M&P Sport 2 is I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe the M&P Sport 2 is the most sold rifle in 2020. It is the most popular. I can't even show it.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's why you go to Twitch. Anyway, so the M&P Sport 2 is the most mainstream budget rifle versus PSA. Like PSA, kind of the way I see them is they are more ingrained in the crowd that knows. They're more ingrained in the crowd that knows to go and look and buy a build kit. But for the average person walking into a big box store, they're going to find M&P Sport 2s. They're not finding PSAs, they're finding M&P Sport 2s. So the M&P Sport 2 is a much more mainstream budget rifle. It's been around for a very long time compared to the PSA or fill-in-the-blank budget company that just started on Instagram a few years ago. There's a few other companies out there. The Springfield Saint, I actually really want to get one, although I don't like Springfield. They look pretty good. I've been told they're basically a budget BCM. They have a lot of BCM furniture on there, including their nice little stock, which is pretty cool. There's that one. There's the SIG M400, although I hate the rail on it. There's no Picatinny across the top, which I'm not a fan of. It does lighten it up, though, but whatever. There's another one, too. Oh, FN has one that looks pretty good. And then there's the Colt 6920, which I think it's slept on a lot, but it's a good gun, and you can pick them up on Gunbroker, I think, right now for about $1,100. And it's Colt, which, you know, people are like, Colt. Wow, it's an M4A1. So whatever. Let's see. What's the cheapest gun you own that you would buy? Oh, what's the cheapest gun? Glock? Oh, well, yeah, I mean, as far as what I would personally use or own, it'd probably be an Aero Precision. It's probably what I would pick. And I have an Aero. I bought an Aero upper a long time ago from them, but obviously that's still more expensive than, say, a Glock. Oh, Ballistic Advantage is another one. We have a bunch of Ballistic Advantage guns. And then obviously we have the M&P Sport 2, which I honestly wasn't even thinking about that much because I'm more ingrained in the gun, you know, culture, gun community. I was thinking, you know, like Aero and, you know, Ballistic Advantage, which are, you know, more or less sister companies. I wasn't thinking M&P Sport 2. That was actually Drew who brought that up because that's a much more traditional weapon. Although Chad has used one too. How many rounds did you shoot out of your Sport before you get rid of it?
Well, the lower still has like 30,000, 40,000.
So you kept the lower.
I kept the lower.
And it's worked.
Everything else got completely swapped out though.
That's what a lot of people are telling me they do. What? How many rounds through the upper before you, or do you swap parts before you swap parts around?
Probably 10-ish.
10?
Yeah.
And?
That was good.
All right. Well, that's only one case, so like we have to discard. You know, what?
Same with mine. I still have mine.
Drew says, yeah, about 10K. It's fine. Yeah. And here's the thing. I would venture a guess. Now, I would have to pull guns. I would have to buy guns from different lots, and we have to do a case study. I would be curious to put 10 sports versus 10 PSAs. Is the concept. Because my theory is that an M&P Sport, while Smith & Wesson, they may have more industrial, corporatized manufacturing procedures, possibly, than PSA. I wouldn't be surprised. They're a bigger company, has been around longer. It's quite possible their guns might be a little more consistently good or bad, you tell me, possibly than PSA or some of these other budget brands, because they are a big box gun company. That's not always good, though, but, you know. But from a manufacturing standpoint, they actually might be more consistent, because I'm hearing a lot of good things about the M&P Sport 2. And then ours obviously worked fine, but only for like 680 rounds, so, you know, whatever. Aero owns Ballistic Advantage. Yeah, so the same deal. Same, but different. So, Back to questions. The Zion Z15. Yep, I don't have any experience with those. I believe that's another budget option on the market that came to the market a year or two ago, I think, maybe, from IWI, the company that makes the Tavor. They now have a budget AR as well. Oh boy. Radian. Yeah, that's not budget at all. You're talking, what, $3,000 or something? So, anyway, budget suppressor. That is a great discussion, and that's one that we also are going to have to address at some point. We have some Yankee Hill cans here. There are a ton of other companies that have created budget suppressors that we have to go out and just buy them all, and then also possibly buy multiple of all of them. But that is something to test. Take a budget rifle, put a budget suppressor on there, and see what you can get away with. Would be really interesting. Now, I know PSA is a huge company, and guess what? Smith & Wesson is also a huge company. Arguably a bigger company. They've been around and they do a lot more things. Well, maybe not a lot more things, but they do a lot of things. All right. Form 1 is, yeah, I know, the $200 does not help at all. Does it just come down to getting a better barrel? Yes and no. Actually, a bolt carrier group would, I think, make more sense. I've talked to some people who've said, I got an MVP Sport 2, and then I upgraded the barrel and I upgraded the bolt. And I'm like, well, at that point, you could have just maybe built a better gun to begin with. But I know some people, they want to, it's a progression, type of a process. I would actually say if you have an M&P Sport 2 or a normal budget gun, don't put money into it. But put accessories into it that you can then move to a better gun. And then save your money and actually buy a better rifle instead of building off of this gun where you are going to be limited just with all the parts that are, on the gun existing based on some of the upgrades that you want to do. I would recommend spend your money on like your optic and your light and then wait until you can build or buy a newer rifle. That's ultimately what I did. So when I started, and I know when I'm talking about, it's funny, people like to bring up that it's funny that I'm the one talking about budget. The monitor just flaked out. I'm the one talking about budget because I'm also the guy who will do a video on $40,000 night vision. Well, the fact of the matter is, I didn't always have $40,000 night vision. When I first started getting into guns, I had a DPMS M4 with a fixed front sight post, a no-name brand, well, I think it was there, quad rail, or was it plastic handguard? No, I actually think I had a quad rail because I really liked my vert grip on there, grabbing onto that sucker. And I painted it. I had a 22 conversion kit, and that's all I had. That was the only gun that I had. It wasn't until later I actually got a Glock. And I made some modifications to that gun. I added a little like $30 light from eBay. I had a Trigicon reflex from my older brother, which, super OG. I thought it was the coolest thing. But rather than building that gun out more, I was like, I just need to start over with like a new gun. I'm going to trade this gun for a dirt bike because I want to learn how to drive motorcycles. And I ended up buying a 16-inch, it wasn't the BCM. I bought a 16-inch, I can't remember who made it. I had the big Troy VTAC rail on it, is what I had. And I had that for a little bit. And that, was still kind of an OG build. And then I ended up ditching that and going to a BCM. So instead of taking my like budget gun and trying to then make it, put lipstick on a pig per se, I was just like, get rid of that, get a different one. Get rid of that, get a different one. And that's an approach that people can and I think should be doing versus trying to marry their budget rifle and trying to just like put tons of stuff on it. Like I don't think that's as good as just simply starting over with a brand new setup that's a little bit better, tailored to your needs, different barrel, different rail, free float, minimalist gas block, all that good stuff. I don't think you should be trying to build your I don't want to say poverty pony, but out trying to make it as fancy and as Gucci as possible. Just start over. Start over, get the barrel you want. Get the rail you want. Look around used. Maybe have an idea of what you want. I want a 14.5 with a free float rail. And you watch and see on Gunbroker, for example, you watched for something that is similar to what you want pop up, and then you snag that sucker and you grab it and then you piece it together. My recommendation for people, and this is my favorite thing. Actually, let's talk about this real quick. My favorite thing about the budget discussion, and I just did an Instagram post on it, kind of laying the situation out. There's a lot of folks out there who they can only afford a budget rifle. And I totally understand that. That's why we're making content around budget rifles. And my recommendation to people is buy the budget rifle. Start dry firing. Get a shot timer, because you have to have one of these suckers if you actually want to get good. And go to work. But Don't be that person who goes on AR15.com and because you're really proud of your purchase of your, your M&P or your PSA, and tell everyone, hey, my gun is better than BCM, LMT, Knight's Armament, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because for one, you don't have the facts. You have no metrics to go by. You're simply making an argument based on the value of the weapon. It's the only metric you have, $600 versus $2,000. It's the only metric you're actually going off of. And what you should be doing instead is accepting that you have a budget option that's on the market that is cheaper for various reasons. Corners that get cut, a barrel that's not as expensive or as nice, less quality control checks, less employees that are looking at it, fill in the blank, whatever it happens to be. And instead, use that while you have to and save up to own a finer weapon, a better weapon, a weapon that has more support behind it. Because I see these people, they buy these budget rifles, and then it becomes part of their identity where they run around and it's like, no, you can own that gun for a couple of years. Like, you don't have to be stuck with a budget rifle for like 20 years. Like, have some goals or something. Like, I had budget rifles for a couple of years, but then I had some goals. I wanted a BCM, and then I wanted to chop it down to 13.7, and then I wanted to put a PEC on it, and then I wanted a Surefire on it. Actually, I think I did the Surefire first, and then I did the aim point, and then I went to an EOTech, and then I got the PEC 15. Like, it was a process. I didn't do it all in one go. But some of these people, it just seems like they're like, no, the budget rifle will be fine for the next 10 years. And then they go and complain on the internet about everyone else having nicer stuff. Like, no, set some goals. Set some goals in owning finer equipment, better equipment. Use that budget red dot for a couple years. Then upgrade. Get an EOTech, get an aim point. Upgrade to an LPVO. Maybe 4 or 5 years down the road, you'll grab a Vortex Razor 1-6 because you want to start doing long range. Like, you do not have to just create your identity. And it's funny saying it because this is what cloners do, but build your identity around a certain gun. Like, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be building your identity around capability. And sometimes capability is going to require better equipment, different kinds of equipment, versus that one budget rifle. You're just like, oh my gosh, I'm an Anderson fanboy. I got to go tell everyone how great Anderson is. Like, no, like, just tell people how much you're training with it. Tell people that it's your training manual of arms on it. You're getting more effective, and then let people know what your goals are. Hey, I'm using an Anderson right now. I would like to try a BCM in the future. When funds become available, or I find someone I can sell this gun to, or do whatever, I will then make the upgrade. Or you sell the upper and then you throw a BCM upper but back onto the lower. Which, if you have something like it sounds like that's what Chad did. He kept the lower and dropped a different upper on.
Yep.
Yes? What was it?
Upper.
BCM upper. Oh my gosh, what do you know about that? So that's exactly what he did. So I just find it funny how much identity people put into the brands that they represent. But that's because people, they crave subjugation. I mean, they crave being in a community. They crave being in a tribe. They crave an identity, a hat that they can wear, a logo or whatever. It's just what people like to do. Stop talking, start training. I love it. It's great. Get out there and shoot some stuff. So, so now I'm getting back to the questions. I got my phone here, and we're looking at some questions. I wouldn't say BCM is the best, but they're good. I agree. And I've heard some rumors that some of the quality control with BCM reportedly or allegedly has gone down some. Now, I think part of that is just because the number of units they're moving is a lot more than it was, say, 10 years ago, or let's say 6 years ago. So the concept is, just with numbers and data, the number of reports that will come in if you sell 10,000 guns versus 1,000 guns, there's going to be more reports of something, because it's numbers. It's just how it works. So I don't know if the reports of QC issues or CS problems or whatever are increasing, or if they are the same amount that they had 6 years ago. They just appear to be more because they're moving more volume. They did a video I think it was 2 years ago, showing their new facility they moved into. And they talked about how much bigger it was, which, means they're probably moving more units. Based on 2020, I think it's safe to say they probably moved a lot of units, provided they could get some supply. So yeah, there's going to be more reports out there of brands and companies having more problems, but that doesn't necessarily mean the percentage went up. it may have held steady or maybe even gone down, but because of the explosion in volume, it looks like a lot of problems, but it's actually not. Numbers, Mason, that's what it's about. But people don't seem to understand that. So yeah, BCMs are great. I haven't shot one more recently, but I have a bunch of BCMs, a few, like my 300 Blackout, my 13.7 OG gun. We have a 14.5 over there. They actually sent that one to me forever ago, which I didn't shoot it much. And then I have a 16-inch somewhere that I never use with their MCMR rail. Why not buy once, cry once? So I think the big issue with the budget Gucci debate is lack of data, like I talked about, where people actually can't prove one brand is better than another. And this happens once you get up to the grade A, grade B stuff, you know, like arguing BCM is better than Knight's Armament. Well, you really don't have anything to argue unless you actually take a bunch of guns from both companies and you put them through the same tests. So even at the top, like, you know, LMT, Knight's Armament, you know, whoever it is, you're not going to be able to prove which gun is substantially better. They each have nuances, like there's certain things about, you know, the MCX I like, don't like, that the LMT has, that, you know, and then this gun over here has, and this gun over here has. But as far as them all being good, yeah, they're all great. But there's no way of proving one is better than the other. The real question is, are you better than other people at shooting? That's the real question. So that's something that I think just a lot of people don't understand. They don't have the data, they don't have the metrics. All they have is money to argue the point, and that doesn't always work. Now, I do think there are some companies that sell guns for more than the perceived value is worth, or more than, you know, they are as far as their effectiveness. And some of that's just going to be, you're going to purchase who you want to purchase from based on their marketing, who you want to support, or if they have a signature rifle from an influencer you want to have and like shoot and hold. I don't know. I don't understand influencer rifles. I've never been interested in owning a gun of someone else's. I want, like, my gun is my gun. Like, the gun I own is my gun. It's not someone else's. I've never understood the signature branded rifle thing. I've been asked by, I think, 3 different companies to do a signature rifle. Told them all no, and I'm going to keep doing that. Gotta keep telling them no. Just go buy an Arrow lower and a BCM upper or something like that and build your own. Set up your, it's not building, by the way. It's not even assembling. You're putting 2 pieces together. So let's also like deal with that. Asking which brand. Yeah, get out of the brand mentality, and everyone's asking about brand. Yeah, I know. People, because here's the thing. It's easier to talk about this and this than it is to go to the range and actually put in work. It is easier to talk theoretics of, or if that's a word, well now it is, of Aimpoint versus EOTech, or PSA versus M&P Sport, or fill in the blank brand versus brand. That is way easier to do on a phone, at a computer. You have no skin in the game versus the time you're putting into. There's no hard skills involved, and there's no actual data occurring. And so that's why people do that versus just going to the range, being quiet, and just, you know, going to work and actually accumulating skills or experience. It's those people whose opinions that, yeah, you should ask for and be like, hey, in your experience, what have you had? So like Chad, I said, hey, how many rounds have you shot through your gun? You've owned one. You've obviously gone to the range and shot instead of just talked on forums all day. Oh, 10,000 rounds before you upgraded it, put a BCM upper on it. Cool. That's some data. That's way better data than dudes just saying like, oh yeah, I've shot like 100,000 rounds, and you have no actual like proof, and you haven't seen anything, and it's all hearsay, and usually you can tell who's truthful and who's not based on claims that are made, like with XDs. So it is funny how that works. But people need to be focusing on training. At the end of the video, I talked about this sucker. This is the best $130 you're ever going to spend. Every serious shooter, I'm going to tell you right now, every serious shooter out there is working speed and accuracy. And guess how they metricize and record metrics for their speed? This guy, because it's the only way. It's the only way to measure speed is with something like a shot timer. I mean, unless you film it and then you go back and you put a little countdown timer in there and you actually track the time, and that takes forever. This is the only way to track your speed. If you're not tracking your speed, you have no idea if you're getting better. You could be getting more accurate. You could be shooting like bullseye drills, or 100 meter, 50 meter, like A zone, target, whatever. And you could be going up and being like, oh, my group's getting smaller. Okay, we're improving our accuracy. I have no idea if I'm improving my speed. So you've got to have one of these. If people are having the discussion budget versus Gucci and they don't even own this sucker, I generally don't care too much about what they have to say. But this sucker right here, you really need to have shot timers. You can get that one, or you can get the little blue one, the club timer, or not the, no, I can't remember what it's called. The little blue box. You gotta have a timer. That's a shot timer. $130. You can get them used, maybe, except most people will probably keep them. If you use a timer, then you are not going to shoot. That's hilarious, and it's been disproven. Fun fact, JSOC, everyone at the top, guess what they use when they're training on the flat range? Timers. So yeah, it's been disproven constantly. All right. But does the shot timer possibly hook up to like your phones or anything like that? Trying to find one. Yeah, so the problem with phones, I think someone has been working on a wrist-mounted one that could work in an indoor range. The phone, basically all of them, most of them aren't going to work because the sensor is going to pick up sound next door or sound that's loud, and in an indoor range, everything's loud. So yeah, shot timer in an indoor range is very hard to use. What I have done, I have used a shot timer at an indoor range, believe it or not. I think it was in Illinois or somewhere, believe it or not. I had to just wait. I basically like checked who all the patrons were, and I kind of saw what they were shooting, how they were shooting, and I was like, all right, I can probably fit in some stuff because they don't know what they're doing. They're going to spend a lot of time loading. So I literally would just kind of stand there and be kind of waiting, you know, maybe drawing a little bit or whatever. And then as soon as they went to reload, then I quickly got my reps in while there was a space of time. So if you're willing to do some stuff, you can make it work. But yeah, in an indoor range, it's very difficult. Yeah, don't ask why I was there. Anyway, so marketing and branding is a big part of the firearms industry. It's a part of everything. It's called sales. Companies have been conducting marketing for the purpose of sales so that they can be a company since the beginning of free trade and commerce. So yes, that is a thing. Marketing is a thing. Now, there's a big difference in positive marketing campaigns that not only represent your brand and sell your product and teach people about your product, but also positively affect the community. There's all kinds of different marketing campaigns that get used. I am of the opinion that, and in my experience as well, the best marketing is the marketing that not only educates people on the product, but also gives them something in addition to that. Education, ideas, inspires, more than just talking about the product. I see companies that do marketing campaigns simply on the product. That's all they focus on. This is the product. We're gonna slam this in your face. We're gonna remind you this product exists. We're gonna do it day after day. And I'll tell you right now, those companies generally don't do real well. Subtle marketing campaigns or marketing campaigns with more benefit to people, you know, giving away free education, those generally speaking reap way more benefit than, you know, hard charging marketing campaigns of just slamming product in people's faces. Now, a marketing strategy that works really well, but I don't think yields the best results as far as the end user, is the paid shill approach, where you go and pay people to say your product is great versus your product standing on its own two hind legs. This is a problem because you get a lot of customers who don't think for themselves that are going to be using your product, who simply just want to chase their favorite influencer. And then the question is, do you really want those kinds of people representing your product abroad? And the answer is, they're not the best representatives either. So our approach is, we let our product stand on its own. We don't pay people to market our product. If you like our product, that's awesome. And if you don't like it, we don't care. We're not here to make everyone happy. And as we market our product, we try to give back information. We try to give back other companies that we work with who also make products that are great. I've got all sorts of products here that we don't, you know, sell or make any money on, but these are companies that we value very much because they are contributing items to the industry that are important. So as far as marketing approaches, I think a marketing approach that prioritizes the community, the consumer, more than your own product is most effective. That is how we've been conducting our business now for years. And at times, this is the funny part, I've had people tell me, hey, you haven't talked about this product that we make in a long time. And I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't, because we've been busy talking about all this other stuff, like training related or something that we never talked about, reminded people we sell this product. So at times I've had people here tell me, hey, you're actually not selling or marketing the product at all. You're marketing other ideas and other things. So then it's like, oh, well, shoot, well, I don't really want to don't want to make dedicated posts about that because I want to talk about budget versus Gucci. I want to talk about the real hard topics. I don't want to talk about gear. So it's pretty funny how that works. So questions. Let me see. Sell me a PEC 15. I wish I could. We have app PLCs. We can't sell full power PECs. If we did that, well, actually, I can't even get full power lasers. They have to go to a police department first, at least from Insight. If I were to put a bunch of full power lasers up on our website, we would not have a dealer contract with Insight anymore, and I wouldn't be able to get any more lasers at all. So that's how they control people selling full power lasers en masse to the community, which sucks, but it is what it is until the FDA gets that removed, or someone has the FDA remove that rule. The FDA controls that. Budget AR equals free Afghani AR. Yeah, I know, right? How often do you swap bolts and springs? Not often. I've got bolts in my rifles that have been in there for forever. I know there's components to the bolt carrier group that have been swapped out by people here in the armory, but for the most part, my personal guns that I shoot a lot don't really get touched. They don't get handled. But for springs, don't get switched out. The only time I've really swapped around springs was when I was tuning the gun based on my suppressor or muzzle device, and I might have done like a lighter spring, heavier spring, a Sprinko type of a setup. But no, I don't routinely go through and change everything on my rifles. Now on my Glocks, that's a little different. On the Glocks that I shoot at the range a whole lot, because I have some Glocks that I dedicate a lot of time to, and I have other ones where I don't shoot them as much. I'll change the recoil spring every 6,000 to 8,000 rounds. I'll change the striker spring every, I don't know what they recommend, it's like maybe 15 or something like that. I've done that one, although that one I don't really keep track of. It's more of a, it's about time I've swapped it out. And then what else on the Glock do I have to swap out? That's basically it. Yeah, that's pretty much all I swap out. I have never shot out a Glock barrel. Oh, except for the Zev one that I had, but that's an aftermarket. But stock Glock barrel, I haven't ever shot those out. Just keep shooting them. Most of this gun stuff is actually way more durable than people think. And most people aren't going to outshoot the barrel on their pistol or even necessarily on their rifle. Rifle's a little different though, because you can prone out and get really stable and shoot and be like, oh my goodness, this group, and it's your ammo and your barrel. But pistol, you're not going to outshoot a pistol barrel. Not for a long time. For a younger shooter who doesn't have a steady source of income, is a Holosun sight a good choice? The answer is yes. If it is all you can afford right now, but you want a red dot, you want to get time, both eyes open, training, not having to rely on using iron sights, the answer is yes. Holosun does make some optics that are really good. However, you need to understand that it is a cheaper item. Generally speaking, in the manufacturing world, the way you get cheaper items is with slave labor, or you use cheap parts. Is generally speaking how cheap products come into existence in any market. So generally speaking, when you have a red dot that is $120, there are parts on that optic, the mount, the metals, the LED emitter, the glass, the fill in the blank, the repeatability, how many steps in QC it's going to have. There are shortcuts and time that has to be cut in order to make that, bring that cost down. Or you said, slave labor. So that's something you need to understand. Should you want to rely on that over an aim point? The answer is absolutely not. But for training and getting started, sure, go ahead. They can be fine. I know people who've had good experience with them. I've also seen people have bad experiences with them. Just have the understanding that a Holosun, $140 red dot is not inherently better than an optic that is far more proven, like an aim point. But like I said before, buying your guns and your gear and getting outfitted can be a progression. You buy what you afford now, but you can also save up and slowly upgrade, just like I did. Started with the DPMS, and now, now there's other, cool stuff. You don't have to have everything right off the bat. Your first gun does not have to be a Gucci build. That doesn't have to be. If it can be, that's great. Although don't think that's going to make you shoot really well. You still got to be able to shoot. If you hand a monkey a really nice gun, he's still going to shoot like crap. Although probably better than some people, compared to a budget rifle. So, thoughts on ride-on optics? Haven't used them, but I would say the same thing. Things as a manufacturer, as someone who sees things get made, tours manufacturing facilities, deals with markup, deals with numbers, deals with American made, deals with nylon, deals with metal, deals with plastic. So really all of them except for injection molding. I know a thing or two about margin and like cutting corners and trying to bring prices on products down. When products get really cheap, there's a couple things that are happening. Slave labor or cheaper parts. It's going to be one of the two. So is that good enough for you? Possibly. Should you rely on that if you really need something to go to work? Probably not, when there's better options on the market. Stair-step progression. Stair-step progression. You could start out a little cheaper and then, build up from there. All right, questions. Stock trigger on your Glock. Most of my Glocks have stock triggers. I do have a trigger I favor from a company called, you're going to love this, Tactical Trigger. Almost impossible to Google because, I even told him like, hey, your name's kind of like impossible to, find. Those triggers are really good. I have one in my carry gun. I've been using them for years. Got one in one of my other Glocks. I maybe have 3, but all my other Glocks are stock. I shot a stock Glock in the video that launched yesterday for a few drills. I use stock triggers a lot, so I still use them quite a bit. These live streams have helped me realize that I'm not old. There's just a lot of boys out here. So, so here's the thing, right? Like, and I talked about this. I think it was, was it on the Vortex stream? Again, it was just on a podcast. That's what I'm referencing. Firearms ownership is generally a journey, right? There's very few people that get into gun ownership and go straight to max Chad level in kit and understanding and training. There's very few people. Now, I will say I have been able to work with some gamers who have gone straight to that level in terms of kit, not necessarily their training, but they know that and they're working towards it. But they have said, hey, I want PVS 31s. I want a full power PEC 15. I want, this optic. And so they go straight to having a really nice loadout. And then, they realize, hey, I still have to train with it and get good. But for the most part, it's going to be a progression where you grew up hunting, hunter's ed, bolt gun, keep ammunition, rifle separate. Oh, AR-15s, these things are becoming popular. M&P Sport 2, do they make it in mossy oak? Oh, they do. Amazing. That's exactly what I want. It'll go with my jacket. You buy that rifle. You then shoot some Coke cans. You then go to a 4th of July barbecue. Your uncle comes by with a decked out, suppressed, who knows what, probably not great gun, but it's more tactical and cool looking, and it's not mossy oak. And you're like, oh man, that's what I want instead. So then you go out and you try to buy that, and you sell your mossy oak gun. So then you get that. And then you find out from one of your buddies who just started USPSA, oh man, there's this really cool thing we can do where we run around and there's a timer, and it's competitive, and you're scored against people, and you're not just shooting for no reason off of a bench. So you go and try that out. You get hooked. Then you see people wearing kit. Then you're interested in kit. Then you're interested in competitive shooting. Then you see someone with a plate carrier and you're like, ooh, body armor, I should probably think about that. It's a progression of learning. There are certain things that can be done to expedite the learning process, such as social media, content, educating people on, which is the purpose of the video yesterday. Hey, there's more to owning a gun than just owning the gun. There's chest rigs. There's slowly upgrading to better equipment. There's such thing as $5,000 rifles that do give you some benefit over an $800 budget rifle. So then, right off the get-go, you can be like, oh wow, I have a little more perspective as to what's going on. Maybe I can bypass and speed up the process in that journey, in that progression, in being capable and having capable equipment. And that's been the purpose of T.REX Arms, has been helping people with that progression. Now, I will confess that at times we have focused more on like people who are already in the know versus, beginners and new people. But we're trying to fix that. We're trying to have content such as the how to shoot a pistol in 10 minutes, the video we just published yesterday, that are for new gun owners who know almost nothing. They've just seen riots kick off in our country. They don't know what's going on. There's some people that want to ban rifles and regulate receivers, and they're like, well, shoot, I need the thing they want to ban, because people have learned that's what you should want. When the government wants to ban a thing, you probably own that thing. So then they want to go and buy that thing, but they don't know anything about it. They don't know what they actually need to go with it. They don't know how often to clean it, which we haven't done that video, which, I don't know. Or they don't know how to paint it, which we have done that video, but it's not as necessary. So that's what we're trying to do now, is helping people with that progression of learning to expedite the process, and also expedite the process of understanding that if you suck, you suck. And so you have to get out there and get training. And then how can you do that? How can you train yourself? What do you need? What's the pieces of gear that you need, and how do you do that? We're going to work on some stuff for that, the standards page on our website, things like that. 5.56 AK for the win. Yeah, 5.56 AK winners, AK owners are winners right now. They're laughing right now. All the other Sim62 boys are, well, unfortunately. Arrow is, I would say, in the budget class. They are a little better, but again, it's hard to prove how much better or how little better they are than other brands out there. LWRCs are good. 416s are, you pay a lot for the name right now. I'll just put it that way. Is it a $4,000 gun or upper? No. It's not. You know, $1,800 for an upper, you know, or so. Like, okay, you know, it is German, overbuilt and gassy, and it's piston, thing. Like, yeah, 1,800 maybe, but $4,000, no. At that point, it's if it makes you happy, you're gonna buy it. Otherwise, like, whatever. I've got one. I rarely shoot it. Swamp Fox, don't know. Again, like I said about price point, if something's cheap, it's cheap for one of two reasons. It's not going to be cheap because it's amazing. If a company knows they have an amazing product, they generally don't make it as cheap as possible. Like that's not generally what business, like what happens in business. Generally, it's going to be priced around how good the item is. That's just how it is. Now, there are some items out there that for the price are good for the money, or they're really good for the money. But all of the cheaper stuff out there that's foreign made, that comes from China, that comes from factories with potentially less than ideal living conditions and pay, there is stuff that is going on there that there's not as much care and management and whatever that's going into the product like some of these other products, like American-made products. Like I just saw an article, I think it was from EOTech, about their facility and some insight into their business, being all like American-made and everything up north, and I think it's in Pennsylvania. Maybe it's Pennsylvania. No, it's not Pennsylvania. It's somewhere else. I'm hoping to go up there soon. But companies like that usually put a lot of care into their products, and that's what I'm interested in buying when I'm buying a product. Like, I want a product that's backed by people that really care about the product and aren't just, sweating in a shop. Like, I'm not interested in owning those kinds of products generally because the people making them don't care about the product. I want people who are making product that actually care about the thing that they're doing. They care about the screws that they're screwing in. They care about the Loctite that they're applying. They care about the precision, the quality control. And you're not always going to get that with some of these cheaper optics. Like, you just aren't. Like, it's not going to happen at that sort of price point. How badly does the MRO suck? The old one had a lot of blue tint and it had some parallax issues. The new one is similar to a T2. I've got one, the HD. Now it is, I think, like $650 or something. So it's not budget anymore. The old one, I think, was like $500, so it was priced like an EOTech. I like the HD. I don't like the old one quite as much. They updated it for sure with the HD. I appreciate rifle class. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, just like I was saying with like education, training, supplemental, the progression, the journey of progression of firearms ownership. Another project that we just did a couple months ago is I released my first free rifle class on our website. It's 3 hours long, although it is chaptered. So if you want to skip to like certain sections like malfunction clearing, reloading, throttle control, calling shots, whatever it happens to be, you can skip through the video. It's not a video you have to watch from, it's not a movie, right? It's not a fictional story of, I don't know, some crazy gun industry, horrible, corny thing. So you can watch it at any point in the video. You don't have to watch it front to back. But it's for free, available on our website. It's not on YouTube. It's not here. It's only on our website, right there on the training page. 3 hours long, rifle, check it out. A lot of my training philosophy is within that video, and some of the stuff that I've done for other people as well, just like some of the concepts, same things. All right. Scrolling down, LG trigger. Yes, this one, the ACT trigger. Yeah, the advanced combat trigger. One of the best budget triggers you can get. And I know people are going to be like, oh, $70 isn't budget. No, for what this is in aftermarket compared to like Geisley and some of these other triggers and Timney and whatnot, this is a budget aftermarket trigger. And I like these a lot. We have these in a bunch of guns. It's something that would have been fun to feature in the video yesterday. We talked about it, but it was also the last day we were filming, and it was like, do we really want to chuck this in there? And Like, is it going to affect that much? Like, probably not. People aren't going to notice as much. So we didn't. But this is a trigger I highly recommend. We did just put these on our website because we want to support it because it's awesome. We want to have them out there with, our essentially same-day shipping. So we do have these. There should be some in stock. I could be wrong though. They could have all sold out by now, but they're awesome. I love them. We've been using them for a long time. Oh boy. Let's see. AC1s. Oh my goodness. Would you recommend National Armory's rifle classes? I have no idea. I don't know what they're teaching over there. I don't know what it entails. I know there's some other places. Rural Range, I think, has a bunch of training stuff that they do. It could be good. It could also not be good. I don't know. I have no idea. I would have to, the problem with recommending training companies, and I'm getting to talk to a guy and hang out with a guy this Friday from a new training company just started, is it's hard to say how good a training company is going to be unless you go and take the class. And I'm not running around taking everyone's classes. I could send someone here to potentially do that, and I've thought about that, sending people here to basically go check in on classes and then write up an AAR and be like, yes, this place is cool. Yes, this place treats people well. This place doesn't. This place told me to hold left with my pistol instead of understanding what I was doing was wrong, or fill in the blank, whatever. We just haven't been able to do that yet. So it's hard to recommend training companies. I generally don't recommend them unless I'm able to talk to the instructor face-to-face, or they've put out a substantial amount of content on the internet that you can kind of piece through and kind of see what they're about, have some track record. So there's an instructor from a company that's coming into town on Friday that I'm going to be able to spend time with and talk to him about, hey, what are you guys trying to do? What's your training philosophy? So just kind of, go to lunch, just figure some things out. That's really important. But I generally don't like recommending training companies unless I know more about them. There's good ones out there and there's bad ones. There's plenty of bad ones and there's also plenty of good ones. They weren't popping up with the Cryptech versions. All right, cool. Nonprofit to test and establish firearms. Yeah, so fun fact with the IRS and 501c3s. A few years ago, they really hammered down on who could, apply for a charitable nonprofit. People suggested I do that with my Twitch giveaways because I'm giving away in excess of estimated $80,000 in gear next year, if not more, which I'm then going to be taxed on. I can't make a 501c3, or at least I highly doubt the IRS is going to allow me to make a 501c3 for the sole purpose of giving away body armor, chest rigs, plate carriers, and weapons accessories. Kind of doubt it. It is humanitarian. I would say absolutely. Gear that preserves life, definitely humanitarian. The IRS, will they think so? No. They will not allow that. So, yeah, 501c3s for firearms related stuff, testing, study, is just, I don't think it's going to happen. If someone in here could figure out a way to make it work and I'd be free and clear, incredible, amazing. I just don't think it's going to happen because the IRS is one of the most detestable agencies in our government, and they are not going to like the amount of freedom that I want to share with people with a 501c3 like that. It's not going to happen. So instead, we get to pay lovely taxes on the things that we do. So anyway, shotgun content. Would love to see your ideas on drills, kit, and purpose. That is a good question that I'm not going to answer. I'm not a big shotgun guy. I have some very nice shotguns, some Benellis and some other stuff, but I don't recommend people buy a shotgun. And here's why. There is a lot more to knowing how to shoot a shotgun well and manipulate a shotgun and reload a shotgun and work a shotgun than an AR-15 or a carbine. I can give a brand new shooter an AR-15 and show them magazine goes here, charging handle is here, here's the safety, oh, and there's the trigger. After 29, 30 rounds, whatever it is, you're going to push this button, you're going to put a new mag in, you're going to hit this little lever, or just come up here and pull the thingy, and you have another 30 rounds. There's less recoil. I wouldn't say they're quieter, because they're all going to be loud indoors. But a shotgun is actually a lot more complicated as far as the manual of arms goes and in mastering a shotgun than an AR-15. So I do not recommend shotguns to new gun owners. Shotguns have very limited application, but AR-15s, absolutely. That's why AR-15s fly off the shelves, is because people know I don't just have to buy a shotgun anymore. There's cool AR-15s on the market. You can buy I mean, remember a few years ago, you could buy an AR-15 from Walmart. I remember walking into a Walmart, I want to say it was like 6 years ago or so, and I remember seeing an AR-15, and I took a photo. I think I put it on the T.REX Instagram, and I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever. You could buy an AR-15 at Walmart. Like, this is proof that ARs are becoming like really big and understood and mainstream. And then since then, Walmart's been like, no guns and whatever. But that's a big deal. You know, as soon as that started happening, we started to see shotguns go away to some extent as far as some of the culture goes. So no, ARs. AR platform shotguns, don't know. Okay. So I'm looking at a few more questions. Let's do a couple more questions before we go. This has been a very fast live stream, I'll say. Just really, you know, there's a lot of talking. So becomes like, what do you think about a former SF dude saying that speed will come when it comes to muscle memory, lining up sights, and other fundamentals? I agree and I disagree. So basically the concept is that if someone knows how to do the stuff, they will automatically get faster later. The answer is no. You may be more consistent in how you draw, how you reload, how you do your stuff, but the only thing that's actually going to make you faster at it is if you push yourself, if you actually want to get faster. Just knowing the thing, I know lots of shooters out there, they know how to do the tasks, but they're not pushing their speed. And that's what it requires. It requires that you're going to push your speed and actually get faster. Yes, you have to have the proper, you know, economy of motion and efficiency and consistency and muscle memory in order to make that happen, you know, cognitive processing and all that good stuff, neurological pathways, all this big, like big brain knowledge and words. But for the most part, that speed's not going to happen unless you make it happen. That's why these suckers are great, because you know what's going on. It can help motivate you and help get you faster. So yes and no. Yes, but no. Let's see. The only way to go faster is to go faster. Zing! Economy of motion, definitely have that figured out first, because the more stuff you can eliminate, the faster it'll automatically be, even if you're doing it slowly or smoothly. But it is what it is. Okay, a couple more. That's not a question, but I agree with it 100%. How about a leak? No, I've been a good boy. I don't leak products anymore. Just kidding. Just tune into my Twitch streams. I'll just say that. Good resource for night vision training homework. Well, I'm actually not aware of a lot of resources online that cover night vision principles and concepts. There are a couple videos on YouTube. There's one from a Marine. Someone in here is going to have to help me out. Brent0326 or something like that. He did a video that I saw a couple months ago on night vision use, just a beginner, just a IR light discipline. Here's how it works. Here's your helmet options. Use your whatever. A solid video, but there's not a lot of training content out there because most of these night vision companies, in my opinion, gatekeep way too much. They're like, oh, come take the class from us in order to learn it. And it's like, no, like, all you're doing is it's a flat range class at night. I mean, you're not doing anything super special. There's nothing stopping you from doing a couple videos, and you would actually get more clients because more people would see it, see that you're the expert on the thing, and they would want to come train with you. Generally speaking, that's how it goes. But if you never show what you know, nobody knows to come and train with you. So you've got to put yourself out there a little bit. Yeah, you're going to get criticized. Yeah, you're giving away your secret sauce for free. Guess what? That gets you clients, and that gets you the right clients. So no, there's not a lot of night vision content out there. I've done a couple of videos. I'm hoping to do more videos in the future. I'm hoping to actually have a night vision training video on our site, take a bunch of employees here within the company, take them out, teach them the same stuff that I've taught to other folks on here's how you move with night vision, here's considerations for, you know, light, IR or white light, transitioning between nods and white and all that good stuff. From a a range perspective and whatnot, but the thing with night vision is it's actually not about shooting; it's about moving. That's all night vision is about. It's about moving and seeing. Shooting with nods is actually super easy. It's everything else, looking through a tube that actually is a little bit more difficult. And building people's confidence with that is really what classes should be doing instead of just pressing a button on a laser pad and doing this the whole time. That's easy and honestly is done too much in class, in my opinion. So, in the future, I'm hoping that we can do more. All right. I know we talked some budget stuff, but there's a lot of other stuff we talked about. So this title may not be like perfect. What is the next step up from BCM? Honestly, there's parts that you could actually, I would say, add to the gun, like an LMT or Surefire bolt carrier group. But the upper itself is solid. I mean, LMT is really good, really hard to get if you want a full upper. There's a few other companies out there, but honestly, if you had a BCM, I would focus more on the stuff on the gun, which I know usually I say like focus on training, versus trying to upgrade, the barrel even further or the rail even further. Then think about your white light, your optic. Do you want a magnified optic? Do you want a PEC 15? Do you want night vision? Like I would say what I would do, and this is what I did. The progression for me was as soon as I got to BCM, I did not try to go buy a 416 or an MCX. I went and bought night vision. That was my next thing. I didn't need to upgrade from a BCM because that wasn't necessarily going to help the capability that I had. Night vision was the next logical step after I got to BCM. And that's another thing that we've talked about. Hey, should we create a gear progression example for people of considerations to make along the way? When should you buy night vision versus these other items? What components do you put on a rifle before others? Like sights come first, light comes next, sling comes next or comes before light, but a light's very important, and then a red dot, and then a trigger, and then a better lighter, and then coming up with a framework for people to sort of work off of. I don't want them to follow it necessarily exactly, but just to give ideas. We've talked about that, what that would look like. But no, if you already have a BCM, you should be looking into furthering capability with other systems, other platforms, or night vision, versus simply just like trying to upgrade that gun itself. I mean, if you have, for example, an 11.5 BCM, and you want another, you want to optimize that gun, maybe the optimization is getting another upper. Maybe that optimization is a 14.5, and then you put a scope on it, or a 16-inch. Or something, or a completely different gun. So now you have like a short range little gun, and you have like a longer range gun. That's another thing to think about. Instead of trying to have one gun that can do everything, now you have a little bit of options, a little bit of variety, a little bit of spice, a little bit of drip. Oh, shouldn't have said that. That's horrible. So yeah, those are things to think about. There's a lot to think about. But I think one of the biggest problems with the Gucci budget debate, this is a great place to leave off on, is people get absolutely chained to their first rifle or chained to their favorite Gucci brand. They get chained to their PSA, their Anderson, their fill in the blank, whatever gun. And they don't realize that you don't have to just use one brand. That's the great thing about America. You do not have to use one brand. You can literally move on and get another upper. You can get another optic. You don't have to stick with HoloSun. You can go to Aimpoint, you can go to EOTech. You don't have to stick with Aimpoint. You could put an ACOG on there or 1-6. But there's so many people that are just stuck with the identity of that one brand, their first rifle, justifying their purchase, and that just isn't healthy or helpful. You should be willing and able and interested in setting goals and owning equipment and gear beyond the first thing that you own or the thing that you just really like because you just really like it for some reason. Capability should be the goal, not just, comfort. Capability over comfort. With all that said, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope the question answering was helpful, and we will see you guys next time.